What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now let's get cozy and start today's episode. Have you been sitting on a dream that you can no longer sit on anymore? Or maybe you surrendered to the calling of your life's work and you're seeking to create your next chapter. If this is you, please keep listening, because in episode 129 of the Lead with Love podcast, I get cozy with Grace Kraaijvanger. Now, Grace is a speaker, business mentor, and the founder of The Hivery, which I've had the honor of being able to visit on a few occasions. And it's a beautiful co-working space in Mill Valley, California. And it's also bigger than a physical space. It's actually a community where women can create, express themselves, and receive authentic support as they change careers, start businesses, or take time off to pursue a passion. Now, Grace was formerly a professional modern and ballet dancer in San Francisco, and the initial idea for The Hivery actually came from her own longing to create a space and community that evoked, that same energy and spirit as what you would experience as a professional dancer, being able to have days filled with collaborating with choreographers and musicians and set designers and just many other artists. And after retiring from dance, Grace actually pursued a career as a marketing executive in tech and for Fortune 500 companies. So she's been able to blend the two of creativity and expression along with marketing and strategy, and she just brings a true intentionality to the businesses and movements that she creates. So I know you are going to really enjoy this conversation. And another cool fact, The Hivery was awarded Best Office Space in the US and Canada by Wayfair Inc. in 2017. And Grace and The Hivery have been featured in Domino, Huffington Post, and Entrepreneur. And if you fall in love with Grace the way that I have and just really believe in what she stands for, I invite you to join us in San Francisco at The Hivery's Entrepreneur and Inspiration Lab, which has an amazing lineup, including Marie Forleo and Dr. Tererai Trent. And I will also be speaking at this event, and I'll be talking about how to grow your community, increase engagement, and serve your tribe with love so that you can spark a high growth movement, build a deeper relationship with your fans and customers. So, what you can expect in today's conversation with Grace is the importance of core values and what you want your business to be known for and how it informs every decision you make. We also talk about how to respond to ideas that keep creeping back into your mind and how to turn a dream you've been sitting on for many years into a reality. And Grace also shares the resistance that she faced starting a brick and mortar business from others and from herself, and why she didn't let that stop her. She also talks about the essential ingredients she used to build a thriving in-person community. You definitely want to listen to this, and what she's been able to create at The Hivery. And also she talks about some of the challenges that she's faced in building this community and how this obstacle has led to many more opportunities. And we also talk about how to help women recognize they are worthy enough to invest in themselves and their dreams. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, so good. You can find full show notes from the episode over at jadaselner.com /129. Now let's get cozy with Grace. Hi, Grace.
Hi there.
I'm so excited to connect with you today. And I'm just really excited for people to get to learn more about you and your heart and the business that you founded and all of the cool projects that you are putting out into the world. And I know you coined the hashtag women doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually had the honor of meeting you at your business, The Hivery in Mill Valley, which is such a beautiful, bright, vibrant, but also peaceful and calm and creative and collaborative space. The first time that I got to go to The Hivery was for a book signing with Being Boss. And I actually got to interview Kathleen on this podcast. And you weren't there for that event, or at least I didn't get to meet and connect. I think you were there, but I didn't get to meet and connect and mingle with you. But then we had the opportunity to connect where I got to do one of the entrepreneur circles. And then we had a fun, cozy conversation after that. And it was just an honor just to get to know more about you and your work. And I feel like this is just the beginning of our relationship.
I feel the same way. I think we are two peas in a pod in terms of the way that we're creating in the world. So I look forward to more too.
Yes. So, I always like to start with a pretty big, epic question that I know with the type of business that you have built that you can answer this. And the question that I have for you is, what does leading with love mean to you? And how do you put love into practice into your business?
It's such a good question. I love that you're starting this way. I've learned a lot about leading with love. I've had the Hivery. I founded it almost 5 years ago. And it was a big departure for me from what I had done in my career before. I started out as a dancer, and then I went into marketing for tech companies. And I was really craving, and we can talk more about this, but I was craving this. I wanted to have the vibrancy of a creative community again, and I wanted that energy. And so I was really looking to surround myself with that spirit that I had found as a dancer, that passion, both the internal passion and then the external energy of other creatives around you. So when I started the Hivery, I remember thinking that I wanted to create something that was a values-based business. And I was very true to, there was one core value that stood out to me as the value that the business would be the epicenter of the business. And that was kindness. And I felt like if I created a community that was kind to each other, that elevated each other's work, that celebrated each other, then that contagious energy would be limitless. So when I started, I thought, how can I create a space and a community that leads with kindness, which I feel like comes back to your question of leading with love. What does it mean to create community and spaces that are really based in the human spirit, based in what we can do to help each other, to support each other, to lift each other up? Mm-hmm. So what that's meant at the Hivery is it means that it informs everything we do. So it's the way that someone is greeted when they walk in the door is based in kindness and in love. It's the way that someone is seen and heard for who they are. It's the way that we've extracted all judgment or even an application process or any sort of like exclusive club type mentality. We're the opposite of that. We've really created from our membership to our programming to the way we've designed our space is all based in this idea of do it with heart, do it with love and respect for one another. And, I've learned a lot when you build a business like that begins with values. It doesn't mean that you're not building a viable business. You actually can create a very viable business by leading with a value that's inherently human. And, I always say that it's centered in kindness and centered in love. So I feel like the business has been informed by the values that laid the foundation. For me, leading with love means that I wake up every day knowing that it's not just work for me. This is like my life's work. It begins at the soul level, and it's changed the way that I feel about creating business and creating work because it comes from the heart.
With kindness being the leading value, when in your life, and I'm curious, like even like an early childhood memory, did you experience someone being kind to you?
I had a lot of love growing up. I had a very, very special relationship with my mom. It was just my mom and I until I was 8. When she married, who I call my dad, he was my stepdad. So just the two of us, we had an enormous bond and a ton of love for each other. And she certainly taught me that through love, I could gain the confidence to step out bigger in the world. So she was like the root of all kindness and love for me in my childhood years. And then, she went on to marry my dad, and I ended up with 3 more sisters out of that deal. And the 4 of us sisters shared an enormous amount of love over our years too. So I think at a very early age, I was in a very lucky position of having a lot of love in my life. And then, love is like a contagious energy. I think I love really big. I love my family in an enormous way. And in return, I get a lot of love back. Mm. And that's kind of continued on, in the community that I've built too.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, I like to go to the seed of the idea. And I know you said, I got pregnant, got busy being a mom, and I put my dream on hold, but the idea kept creeping back into my mind and I would dismiss it. So I'd love for you to tell me about this idea that kept creeping back in your mind.
Sure. So I mentioned I started out as a professional dancer. I started dancing when I was 3 and I fell in love with dance. So the dance studio was my safe place, and moving and expressing through my body was certainly like my inner art form. I felt so at home as a dancer. And at the same time, of course, being a dancer is a ton of work and there was so much discipline involved, but I had so much passion for dance. And then I worked as a professional dancer, into my late 20s. And then when I got pregnant with my first child, I kept dancing. And my second child, I just, as anyone who's had kids knows, it's like the busyness creeps up on you, where all of a sudden I was so busy with these 2 kids that I was not able to keep up my art form. So I wasn't able to dance at the level that I once had. And I slowly, accidentally retired from dance. And then at the same time I had, we had a growing family and we live in the Bay Area. It's very expensive and I needed to get to work. So, as my dance career kind of went by the wayside, I developed and had created a marketing career in Silicon Valley, doing marketing for a lot of tech companies. And it came very natural to me. I was very good at it and I could throw my energy into it. But there was something missing for me in that. And it was that passion that I had had in dance. I just didn't have it. I knew I'd tasted the fruit of being really passionate about my work. And as a marketer in tech, I just didn't have that same passion. And I was really missing that. So I had some different ideas about how I could light that passion up again. One of them was that I was going to open a dance studio in San Francisco, and I would go look at spaces. And when I would look at these spaces for dance studios, they were inherently open and expansive and high ceilings. Dance studios kind of have to have that quality in order to put a bunch of people in them. And I would picture these, I would go into these potential dance studios, and instead of picturing a dance studio, I would have this vision of like this creative women's collective. And at that time, the word co-working wasn't even really a commonplace word, so I didn't really know what to call it. But I would talk about this dream that I had of creating this vibrant, open, expansive space where women could work. And that dream kept, I would talk about it with friends, not have a word for it, not really know how to describe it, but it kept coming up year after year after year. Until many years later, I told a friend of mine, Julia, who is a fellow artist. She was an opera singer. I told her, I said, it's time. I've had this dream for so long of creating a space for women that would be this expansive shared workspace where we can create inspired work. And she stopped me and said, Grace, you told me about this dream 10 years ago. you've been sitting on your dream for 10 years. And it like lit this fire underneath me where I thought, I will no longer wait. I won't sit on a dream for 10 years. And from, 3 months later, I had a lease for my space. I had named it The Hivery. I wrote the copy for The Hivery's website on a plane from San Francisco to New York. So it was like the jar the lid of the jar had been like taken off. Like the momentum just came flowing out.
So what was the original game plan? And what I love about this, I'm just getting chills from you, walking into these different dance spaces and studios and the idea evolving and forming. But I'm so curious, because I had a brick and mortar business in Kauai, and I had an original business plan or idea of what it would be. And then it evolved into something else, based on the market and what they wanted and needed. And I'm just trying to play that dance. So I'm curious, what was kind of the original business plan, vision, idea, and has that evolved and changed, or is it still the same?
I mean, it's both. In some ways, there were pieces of the business plan that have definitely stayed true, like creating a shared workspace environment has certainly stayed true. I do look at it like a painting or like creating a dance or writing a song that you don't know what it's going to be when you're in it. So, you're kind of like you're creating the work and then the work is creating you. So, it's true that the business evolved and showed me the way. And I've learned and listened and been willing to pivot. And I think that the deepest thing that I realized was that the co-working space for women was not actually what I was doing. It's like, it's the product, if you will, but I always say it's the transportation for something deeper. So what I have really created with The Hivery is a space and community to explore your next chapter and to elevate your own voice. So it's tangibly a place to put your laptop and work, if you will. And then we have programming and events and workshops and all these things that were part of the original business plan. But I think it's the emotional resonance that I've learned the most from. It's this idea that, like, yes, those things have value, but the deeper value is the transportation for something more emotionally meaningful, which is creating your next chapter or feeling supported by community or feeling like you belong to something. So that was the learning for me. It's not what you're doing, it's why you're doing it that really starts to propel the growth.
Yeah, I can even see like visually like these layers of kind of the physical, tangible piece of here is what we sell. Right. But it's truly the transformation, the experience, the what you say emotional resonance that is building and growing the business. It's a living and breathing entity.
Right. And when we do that, what we're talking about is more than just even a business or a product or a service at all, but what you're really talking about is the human experience. And so that starts to, like you said, with your business in Kauai, it starts to inform when you're really listening to, like, how can I help this fellow human being, live a better life, or take their talent to the next level, or have the confidence to make a brave step. That goes way beyond anything you can sell. That's being a human. That's humanity, really.
Yes. And, was there any hesitations in opening a physical space? Was there anyone who was like, Grace, don't do that, high overhead? Like there's like, what was happening? What were the stories? What was the script that was going on around you in starting and opening a physical space?
There's a couple things there. One story that sticks out for me, right before I signed the lease for The Hivery, I was at a cocktail party. And I was talking with, a guy who was like a parent of, another parent at the school where my kids went. And he really talked down to me about my idea. And he said, brick and mortar is dead. Nobody's doing that anymore. Why not just create a digital platform like everybody else? And I just kind of sat there and thought, yes, a digital platform someday, great. But I'm really craving in-person, real-life interaction. I had been working from home, lonely in my home office, going like, I can't be the only one that feels this way. So yes, there were certainly those voices that said, nobody's doing this. Why are you signing a big lease? And then there was my own internal voice of, can I do this? And it was time to go sign the lease. And I almost threw up. Like, I was so sick to my stomach of the commitment, the financial commitment, the life commitment. I was signing a lease that was not a short-term lease. And just the feeling of like, I am really stepping deeply into this concept. And that voice in my head going, what if it doesn't work? And I remember walking from my car to the landlord's office where I was going to sign the lease, and that feeling of kind of feeling sick in my stomach. And I remember thinking to myself that the feeling of fear, of feeling sick in your stomach, is the same feeling as that like exhilaration when you're kind of on the precipice of something exciting and new. And I remember telling myself, if the feeling of fear and exhilaration feels the same in my stomach, then this is a feeling of being truly alive, and I'm stepping in. And I walked in and was like, let's do it. I signed that lease going, okay, like, this is what it means to feel fully alive.
So many chills. I'm curious how many years the lease was, that first.
So when I signed the lease, it was for over 5 years, with an option to renew. So it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
It's a big commitment. And now, we are in an even longer term agreement. So that, right. At the time that felt scary, and now that feels great.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I ask that question is, because there are people who are building businesses in the online space or the digital space. And I think there's something so beautiful when people build brick and mortar businesses, because there's a lot on the line up front before anyone's handing you money. And it's basically you saying yes to yourself, yes to the business vision, yes to the universe. Like, I'm all in for the next 5 years, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And I just invite, anyone who's listening of like, really, what is that dream or vision that you would be willing to commit to for the next 5 years?
And for me, it was, even though I was afraid in terms of, making that big commitment to the lease, I was not afraid of making that big commitment to this kind of work. I felt so sure in the depth of my soul or stomach or wherever it sits in your body, that this was my life's work. Now, whether that was attached to a building, I wasn't so sure, that was scary. But the idea of is it my life's work or my mission in this life to elevate the voices of women? For me, that was like a resounding yes. And in some ways, I felt like it had been a resounding yes all along that I wasn't even aware of. That as soon as I started saying out loud that this was my work and that was my resounding yes, that I started to realize that it sat with me for much longer than I was even aware.
I'd love to hear, just because you've been able to have so much time on the ground and building in-person communities, what have been, the essential ingredients that you've used to build the Hivery community?
Well, one is going back to your original question around leading with love. I set out to build a business that was based in 3 core values. The first was kindness first and foremost. I always say that word first because it's the groundwork. And then the other 2 values are creativity, which I felt like it was deeply important to me to create a space that celebrated creativity that is within all of us. So from my accountants to my nutritionists to my IT consultants to my painters or graphic designers or writers, everyone has a creativity. So I was very interested in creating a space that not only visually represented that creativity, but emotionally celebrated that creativity that's within all of us. And then the third value was community and the value of connection. So I realized, again, pretty early on that what was drawing women into this kind of space at first they would say things like, I need to get away from my laundry. And, I've got all these responsibilities at home and I really want to focus on my work and I want a place to kind of separate those, or I'm building a business and I want to be around other people building a business. So there would be kind of those tangible ideas of why they joined the Hivery. But then as we got deeper and deeper into the layers, I realized what we're all really seeking is a place or a space, whether that's virtual or in person, to belong. That sense of belonging is, again, kind of back to that idea of the human experience. I think that's what we value, above all else, is feeling like we're seen and heard for who we are as we are. And so those three values of kindness, creativity, and a sense of community or a sense of belonging, they laid the groundwork for how to build the business. And they really informed the business of what we stand for, what we're about. And then when you let those values be your pillars, the community does the rest of the work for you. So I feel like my team knows those values, the design of the space is based on those values, the way we create access to this space is based on those values. Our programming is based on those values. So if everything is consistent with those values, then the community does the right. Then there's this contagious energy within those values that spreads the word and keeps people coming back and tells them to tell their friends. And that creates an energy.
Is there something specific that you do inside, the physical space, whether it's a tradition or something that you're just really proud of that you have implemented to really express those values that happens on a day-to-day, week-to-week, or this?
I mean, one of my favorite things that we do here, and that I think is such a beautiful expression of those values, is we have a victory bell. And in fact, we have broken 3 victory bells because we ring them so much. So, which I love. Like every time we break a bell, I'm like, we're doing something right. So, and what they are is they are a literal kind of tangible way of celebrating each other. So it does a couple things. You ring the victory bell when you have any sort of victory. So it can be like, I finished my website. I wrote the first chapter of my book. I, signed a deal with my future business partner, or, I signed up to go back to school. It can be whatever. It can be anything. It can, it can even be like, I finally took the leap to start a new project, anything. So, but what it does is, number one, is there has to be an inner sense of celebrating yourself in order to walk up to that victory bell and go ring it. So it's a big deal to go to individually and introspectively say, you know what? I'm going to go celebrate myself by ringing that bell. And then it's a proclamation to your community to come support and celebrate you and honor your victory and come together. We typically, whenever the victory bell rings, members that are in the space will come around. We often take a victory bell picture. We love putting them up on our social media feeds. We want to celebrate our members. But there's a whole nother layer of metaphorical action that's happening within that victory bell moment. It's your community gathering around to support each other. It's you being kind enough to yourself to step up and ring that bell. And and those things matter. It makes a big, big difference in the day-to-day life when you're celebrating yourself and having your community meet you there too.
I love that so much. And this vision that I also have of this is giving women permission to take up space and to kind of pause everything that's going on. I know for me personally, I when the spotlight's on me and there are other people in the room, I tend to speed up my talking. Like I need to talk as fast as possible. Like I can't take up time. I can't take up space. And so there's this almost celebratory disruption, right? Because people are co-working quietly, working on their laptops, and then someone pauses to like, no, I'm giving myself permission to take up space, to be seen and validated and affirmed for something that I am internally proud of.
Yes. It's such a beautiful gesture, and you said something else that I think is really important that I've taken very literally and taken it to heart. And it's the concept of taking up space. Because I will tell you, when I was first looking for spaces for the Hivery, I saw all kinds of spaces. And even when we first started out, we were in the loft of an art gallery. So because we were a shared space, we didn't have signage on the door. You'd go in, you'd have to know that the Hivery was there. So you had to be a little bit in the know, which has its own kind of urban chic mystique. Right. It's not really what I wanted, So when I went to look for our new home outside of that kind of petri dish space, like my phase 1 space, when I went to look for our new home, which is the lease I told you about signing, I had a totally different intention of how I wanted to take up space. And it started to inform the deeper meaning of what the business was about. And I realized like this movement for women is not the kind of movement that is in the back of a building where you have to be in the know and you go around, you know, or it's like where there's not many windows. Like this kind of movement is bold. It's in the town square. It's like big, beautiful windows overlooking a community where the whole town, the whole community, the whole city can see that the women in there are creating something meaningful. They're stepping out. They're being bold. So the space, the idea of taking up space has to celebrate that metaphor too. It has to, you know, it's this visual, tangible reality that shows the concept of taking up space and being bold and having a massive impact and not being afraid to let the world see what you're doing, what you're creating, even when it's not done, even when it's not perfect. Like just here I am making work. Here I am like living my life. And it changed everything about the way that I looked at this business when I realized the importance of taking up space very visibly.
Can you tell me about a specific time something you planned in the business didn't work out the way you expected? And really, really sharing how you kind of managed your expectations of, okay, I think this is going to be successful, or this is how it's going to work out. And how did you really handle that setback?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think the greatest challenge that I face in terms of growing the Hivery membership is convincing, not everyone, but convincing a woman that she's worth it. And so convincing someone, especially someone that is making a big change or feels that they're in a state of transformation. When I first started, I only had my co-working memberships. So women would come in and they would say, I love what you're doing. I love this space. I want to support you. I want to be part of this movement, but I don't need workspace yet because I don't know what I'm doing. Or I am still working my 9-to-5 job and I'm thinking about going out on my own, but I'm not sure yet. So there was this trepidation of like, I haven't fully stepped in to this idea of creating that I need workspace yet. So my challenge was not that I hadn't built something beautiful, but that they didn't feel ready for it.
Yeah.
So that meant that when I created these goals around how many co-working members I was going to have, I didn't have as many as I thought. And I really had to listen to my community and say, but all these women are coming in here saying, I love this. I want to be part of it. I love what you're doing. I only wish I knew what I was doing. And then I would come and do it here.
Right.
And I realized like that's where I had to pivot. And that's where I had to open up and expand. And I created a whole new membership out of it. In fact, I've created 2 new memberships now out of it. So the first membership I created as a response to that was what's called our community membership. And that was for women that love what we're doing, love what we're about, want to be part of it, want to learn, they want to be connected, they want to be in this community, they want to be coming to workshops, they want to be coming to events, but they don't need a workspace yet. Or sometimes they don't need a workspace. They fully know what they're doing, but they're doing it somewhere else. You know, they're doing it at a hospital or a law firm downtown or wherever they are, but they don't need the workspace, but they want to be part of this community. So I created the community membership in response to, my co-working numbers aren't where I thought they'd be, but I have these droves of people coming in saying that they love what I'm doing. How can I create something that benefits them, adds value to them, and honors the fact that they don't need workspace yet, either because they're not ready or because they're working somewhere else.
Yeah. So, I love that solution and also you sharing of just like, oh, I have these numbers, these goals, and instead of, woe is me, getting really, in that problem solving state of how can I create an offer that serves people at all levels.
Right. And that comes down to, and I know you do this so beautifully, but that comes down to listening. And it's like when you talk about leading with love, it's also listening with love of like, I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm here to support you. So it's being able to respond with like, yes, I heard you and I want to help and I can serve.
And you also mentioned the part around women believing that they're worth it. Especially in times of transition and uncertainty, that's the time when money is the tightest. Also the time when we truly need community and structure and support to lean on. So what have been some, ways that you've moved through that piece to really help women know that they are worth investing in themselves and their dreams and their ideas?
I mean, sometimes it's as simple as just come for 2 hours and you'll see, you'll see that there is so much value, like tangible value to being in a community that cares about you and cares about elevating each other, that the value starts to speak for itself. So I always say that what's happening here in this community and in communities like this is it starts to create an ecosystem that can be a self-sustaining ecosystem. I have members here whose entire client base is from other members. So for example, like I have a member who's a personal stylist. Many of her clients are Hivery members. So it starts to create, and she has grown her business and marketed her business with the support of other Hivery members, for example, who built her website or who coached her on bookkeeping strategies. So you start to feel this kind of like living, breathing ecosystem that shows such a tangible value that if I can just get someone in here to feel it and try it, then some of the self-doubt of like, am I ready? Am I worth it? Starts to erode and go away because they're feeling that kind of tangible elevation of other members of the community.
Oh, I love that so much, of just building that internal economy, and for it to be all women, even better.
Absolutely. And I do, I make a point of saying, because it's deep in my value system, that like, I think being inclusive is being inclusive. Like there's no kind of way to say I'm inclusive except for. So
Right.
We do have male members. We welcome everyone. I personally have a passion around elevating women's voices, but anyone who believes in that and believes in creating a new way of working that's based in kindness and creativity and community, they are all welcome here. Oh, you'll see everybody here.
Yes, I love that. So I know the newest project that you're working on, and I happen to know about the newest project you're working on because I will be a contributor to this event.
Yes,
but I would love for you to share about the Hivery E-Lab that's happening in San Francisco on October 14th. And I'm just, tell us a little bit about it. And then I'd love to hear what's been exciting about the process and also what's been challenging about the process of putting on a live event. And I would love for you to reveal some of the exciting speakers that I'm so excited.
Yes. I mean, this is an example of us like walking the walk, of stretching our wings and playing bigger. This is our 3rd year of doing this event. The first 2 years, we called it the Hivery Entrepreneur Lab. And we would hold it here at the Hivery. We would sell out typically within 3 weeks with a crowd of over 125 people here in this space. And so we knew last year when we sold out right away, we knew that we wanted to make a bigger mark and take a bigger step forward. So what we did a couple things. One is we renamed it. Instead of calling it the Entrepreneur Lab, we call it the Entrepreneur and Inspiration Lab, because it's an all-day event that attracts entrepreneurs for sure, but it attracts people that want to kind of live and breathe and work in this way. And so we found we were getting, artists and writers and consultants and people working, full-time 9-to-5 corporate jobs that want to add some kind of life and luster to their work. And all kinds of people were coming. So we felt like just calling it the Entrepreneur Lab wasn't indicative of the power of this kind of energy. So we changed the name. And we decided to grow it to a new space in San Francisco at Fort Mason Center for the Arts. And it's so interesting. And it's that same feeling that I was talking about being exhilarated and, having a little fear in there too, which is healthy, because we not only took this beautiful event space at Fort Mason, but we took over a huge portion of this big creative campus of Fort Mason. So we're going to be not just at this gorgeous gallery, but also at Green's restaurant and the Firehouse and in the Fort Mason classroom. So we're taking up a huge footprint on a very big campus. We're expecting over 400 women. We are definitely expecting to sell out because there's so much excitement about our speakers, you being one of them. So I'm so excited that you're going to be there. But some of our other speakers are Marie Forleo is our keynote speaker. She is such an inspiration to me. Before I started the Hivery, I took her B School class and basically outlined what the Hivery could be as I followed her course. So to have that come full circle and have her be a guest with us is really exciting. And then Dr. Tererai Trent is an amazing humanitarian and advocate for girls' education. She's from Zimbabwe. She worked with Oprah to bring the Girls Leadership Academies to Africa. She has single-handedly helped to educate over 5,000 girls in Zimbabwe and other areas of Africa. She's just extraordinary. So she'll be speaking. Rosie Acosta is our curator of our wellness space. She's just an incredible yogi, spiritual guide, meditation teacher. She has so much to give and offer. And then Emily Thompson, who you mentioned of Being Boss, will be teaching how to create a Being Boss or how to create a boss podcast. So there's all kinds of just really enriching voices and leaders. And I think what I am most proud of in this event is that the event comes back to those core values that I mentioned of leading with kindness and creativity and community, but we're really honoring the dichotomy of both having an inspired experience and having an elevated experience that helps you unlock potential and move beyond fear, and coupling that with what I call like news you can use, like the tangible tools of really creating growth. So I think when you add those two things together, you have a really rich environment it's magnetic. I mean, the last two events that we've done, people are like floating out the door. So I'm really excited to take that up a notch and offer that to more people and bring that to San Francisco. It's just a dream. It really is. And
I mean, I'm sure for anyone who's listening, I mean, Oprah's favorite guest, right? To be speaking on the stage, Marie Forleo, full circle for me. I got to sit on her couch. I was 2013 grad, went through B School as well with the company that I co-founded, Simple Green Smoothies. And my question for you, and I'm sure people are curious, is how did you get these beautiful, brave voices to commit to being a yes to being on the Hivery stage?
Honestly, I think that, these women who I admire so deeply, I believe, and this is definitely including you, they make decisions about what they're going to do and where they're going to do it in a very authentic way. And so I think it resonated. I think that what we were creating and the voice and passion behind what we were creating it's when you live and work in that way, you're drawn to that kind of energy. And so I feel like my only explanation is that we're creating the best event we know how to make from a very authentic place that allows for honest conversations and vulnerability and elevating voices. And I think that the women that we approached about participating and getting involved, I think that those are values that they share too. So I guess, my advice is like, if you want your heroes or sheroes, as I like to call them, to get involved in what you're doing, create from a place of authenticity and honesty and do it for the right reasons. And, and the right people will be drawn to that.
That's really beautiful. And I know you are not only an entrepreneur, but also a mother like me. At our first conversation that we had, I think we were both like working from home. And those days, I think your son was home from school that day and under the weather and all of those things. And so I'm just curious, time being such a limited resource when you have a family, and a business. How do you guard your time and sanity? Like, do you have any productivity or boundary hacks that you've implemented that you use to really help guard your time as you juggle entrepreneurship and motherhood?
I wish I had it all figured out that way. I really do. I wish I could say like, here's how you should do it because I am learning as I go. And I think, especially, when it comes to kids, they're changing, we're changing, our businesses are changing. So there's no one like static foolproof solution that's going to stick and work for years. And I'm really kind of leaning into just accepting that. And as my daughter has gone into high school, some of the pressures of high school, they require more emotional attention than even before. So like there's pieces where you think that it's going to get a little bit easier as they get older. And there's pieces where I find myself, having to carve out more focused attention for things that are a really big deal, in these kids' world. So I don't claim at all to have it all figured out. All I can say is that I listen. I really try to put my phone away and stop and listen and focus, especially as my kids are teenagers and they're busy. And when I have one-on-one time or quiet time with them, I take advantage of it and I love it and appreciate it and I'm grateful for it. So I can't claim to have it all figured out. But when, yesterday I drove my daughter to rowing practice and we were stuck in traffic and I was just grateful to have time with her. And I feel like that's the best I've got.
Yeah.
When you're stuck in traffic and you get some time to have the real conversations, have them.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. One of my friends and past business coaches, Todd Herman, he's in the high performance space, helping athletes and entrepreneurs. And one thing that he said that kids love, like not so much the love of the sport, but they almost loved the ritual of going back and forth to practice. Like that was kind of the alone time that they could get with their parents. And I just thought that was really, it was just really fascinating. And it's something that my husband and I do now. Our daughter plays soccer and, every practice we actually go and just lay out a blanket, grab some books and some snacks, and we're just there at practice. And sometimes she's like, oh, you guys were there? Like, like she won't even notice that we're still there sometimes. And we're like, yep, nope, we stayed the whole time, but just creating some of those, like grounding into, those parts of parenting is kind of like moving meditation, like just doing life can be that connection and presence and focus with your family.
And I think learning, like it took me a while, but learning to just enjoy some of the, sometimes this could be ridiculous because sometimes the mundane stuff can drive you batty as a parent. Like we all know that, but like there's like, one thing I've learned to enjoy it. I love making my kids breakfast. I really enjoy it now. And I just kind of let myself enjoy it instead of it being like a chore. I enjoy making the breakfast. It just feels like this thing that I get to do to show them, that I care about their bodies and their nourishment. And I want them to have a good start to the day. And nothing really changed in terms of what I was doing, except for my attitude about doing it. I was like, you know what? I like this. This feels good. It's a good way to start the day. So there's little kind of like pearls of joy that, the other way to look at it would have been to like, oh, I have to make breakfast again, But I'm like, you know what? I like it. There's some of these things that I just like being present in and enjoying. It just makes it special.
It feels like you're sprinkling the kindness and tension in the mundane day-to-day tasks and making that be an expression of your love for them.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I screw it up too. Like I have, gotten practice times mixed up because I was on a Zoom call too long or, like I certainly don't claim to have it all figured out. It's also been a real joy to talk with my kids about what it's like to be really passionate about your work. It's been actually really helpful to talk to my kids about that things don't always go my way. And there's a lot of resilience and perseverance that's baked into anything So, it's helped us to relate to each other of like when they don't make the team or when they don't get the grade they want, I'm able to tell them, oh yeah, it happens to me all the time. And I have to make a decision of, am I going to let it get me down or am I going to keep going?
And one more question that I would love to ask you, we talked about like what you sell, right? And then truly what is happening underneath that is the why and the emotional resonance. And so I'm curious, what is the why that you are moving towards now? What is the vision that you are moving towards?
That's a good one. One vision that I'm moving toward is that I want to spread the love and spread the love of what happens here in these four walls. I want to spread it far and wide because I believe that women, I'll go ahead and say women, but I believe that all of us, but what I see here in this space is that women have this instinctual resting place of wanting to help each other. And I want to create more and more spaces and opportunities that encourage, empower, and allow that. So I'm really excited. We just launched our virtual membership, and it's a way that we can say that resounding yes to this new way of creating meaningful work together as women, where we can do that goes far beyond the boundaries of these walls. I've been wanting to spread this love for a long time, and I can't just go out tomorrow and open up Hiveries everywhere. That's just, so I thought, what can I do to bring this way of thinking and this way of loving and this way of supporting and mentoring? What can I do to spread that far and wide? And the answer right now is this virtual membership that we just launched that I'm really, really excited about. So that's the why for what we're doing next.
I love that. And the word that comes up for me around all of this is accessibility, that you're deep listening and tuning in and wanting to reach as many women, humans who lead with kindness, creativity, and community, giving them different access points to really experience the magic that you've been able to create in a dream that was planted, for over 10 years as something that was just swimming in your heart. And then finally having just the gumption to like, no more sitting on this dream. I'm ready to take action and to spread this love in this way. And so I'm so thankful that your work in the world exists. I'm so happy that I get to collaborate and contribute in the event. I will definitely link to the Hivery Entrepreneur Inspiration Lab for those who want to fly in or are locally based in San Francisco. I think it's going to be a beautiful expression of everything that we've talked about in this conversation today. And my last question for you before we say goodbye is there anything else we haven't covered that you would love to share?
This has been such a great conversation. So there's nothing that stands out for me that's missing, but I guess what I would say is, I'm sitting here in my office and here at the Hivery, and I have two paintings on my wall by one of our members, Amanda Reeves. And I look at these paintings and I think so often that our life is like this work of art and it's never quote unquote done. There's no like prescribed outcome. Like we are the artists of this life. And I get so excited about this idea of embracing what we're building, whether that's a business or a career or our path to motherhood or whatever it is. When we look at it like a piece of art that can evolve, it can change, it can add layers, it can take a new form, it can take a new shape. I just think there's no kind of richer way to live than to know that you're the artist. You get to decide, you get to create, you get to paint your own painting. It's just so liberating.
Yes, I am completely in agreement with you. I look at business as my art expression in the world. And I'm just so thankful that you are making that pathway and possibility for more people to really step into that and embody their expression in the world.
Artist. Love it. Yes.
Thank you, Grace.
Oh, thank you. It's such a pleasure. I love what you do. Thank you for having me.
So again, if you adore Grace from this conversation, I highly recommend that you go over to thehivery.com/elab-2018 if you want to join us live in San Francisco in October. I would love, love, love to see you. I always say I'm an introvert that hugs. And so if you come up to me, I will just go into deep, meaningful conversations with you. And of course, if you are looking for support in growing your community and really taking your business to the next level in a way that does not compromise your health, your relationships, your sanity, as well as your integrity, I highly recommend you go over to loveovermetrics.com and go ahead and apply. I want to learn more about you and your business, and I would love to invite you into a beautiful container and support with other women to really, really grow your business and make a bigger, bigger impact in the world. And of course, if you loved this episode, definitely leave a review over in iTunes, jadaselner.com/iTunes, or just type in the search box, Lead with Love. Go ahead and give it a rating that is honest and true to you. And then leave your encouraging, inspiring words for more people to find this podcast as well. Sending you so much love. Thank you so much for your heart and attention in listening to Lead with Love. If this message, leading with love in life and business, and remembering the humans and beating hearts behind the numbers and all of that good stuff, I would love for you to take the time to leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people find out about the goodness and helping spreading more love in the world, which we really, really need. So I would really appreciate that, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.